fall, I love how the leaves turn all sorts of beautiful colors. So to celebrate, we're going to do a video dedicated to fall leaves. Hi, my name is Katie from Lady Red Crafting, and let's get started with craft number 1. To start this craft, we're going to use a wood sign from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to paint this with some Waverly chalk paint in the color white. And I'm doing a light coat over the top of this sign. It doesn't need to be perfect. I want it to be a little bit more rustic, but I do want to get most of the wood covered with the white paint. And once the paint has dried, I'm going to grab some Mod Podge, and I'm just going to paint that Mod Podge on the top of these wood strips in the front of the sign. Then we're going to set this aside to dry. Next, I'm going to grab some tissue paper. I was hoping to use the gold tissue paper, but that didn't work out. So we're going with the white tissue paper. And I'm using a brown, like a chocolate colored brown ink. And I'm going to spell out the words, "Oh, autumn, please do not leave me." I'm going to cut the words out in strips in that tissue paper, and it's okay if the tissue paper is slightly bigger than the strip of wood on the sign, because we can always sand that down here after we attach everything. So I'm going to lay that down nice and neat, and then we're going to add a piece of parchment paper over the top of the tissue paper, and we're going to use our hot iron and just iron that tissue paper right onto the sign. And then we'll lift that piece of parchment paper off, and then we're going to repeat for the remaining words in the sign. These 3 rows of words, I did do all of them at the same time underneath that piece of parchment paper, and it worked just fine. So I grabbed my zip sander, and I'm just going to quickly sand any of the extra tissue paper that was extra on top of the sign, and it comes off really simple. So don't be afraid to do this. It actually works out really well. And these zip sanders work great in getting in between all of those pieces of wood. If you're interested in what the zip sander looks like, you can go ahead and look in the description box below, and there's a link to the Amazon site, so if you wanted to check what those look like. Now, for this next step here, I'm just taking some Mod Podge and I'm going over the top of the tissue paper to seal everything in. And once everything is sealed in and dry, I put a little bit of the truffle paint on a paper towel there, and I'm just going to dry brush over the top of all of the words, just a little bit of paint. And I got a little extra paint on there that I didn't want, so I used a baby wipe and just kind of wiped or smeared that around in there. And it gave it a really nice look, and I liked how that turned out. It was very rustic. So now I'm just going to set this aside for a little bit, and we're going to paint one of these wood ornaments from the Dollar Tree, and this is a maple leaf. To paint this leaf, I'm going to use my Waverly chalk paint in the color moss. And I'm doing a nice thick coat over the whole entire top layer. And once that dries, I did do a second coat just to make sure it was the color I wanted. And then I'm going to take a dry brush, and I'm going to do a tiny bit of dry brushing with the truffle paint as well. And this just gives it a dirtier, rustic look. In keeping with the rustic look, I grab a raffia bow, and I'm going to just go ahead and do a little bit of dry brushing on that bow as well, just to age the bow a little. Now I'm going to put my sign together. So I'm going to take my leaf and I'm going to position it onto the sign here. And I'm going to grab a pencil real quick, and I'm going to mark underneath the leaf where I want the hot glue, just because sometimes I get the hot glue in the wrong spot. So I want to make sure I put it in the right spot so we don't see any of that hot glue. And once that's glued down, I'm going to glue down that little bow to cover up the hole in the ornament there. I'm really happy with how this craft turned out. It's very rustic, and I can't wait to hang this with my new fall decor. Craft number 2. For this craft, I'm going to start with a wood leaf that I got at the Dollar Tree. And I just love how it has 2 different layers of wood on this leaf. After removing the raffia bow from the leaf, I'm going to put the leaf on a paintable surface. And I grab my Waverly chalk paint in the color moss. And we're going to paint the outside layer of this wood leaf. So while we finish painting this leaf, I'd love to hear where you're watching from. I'm from the Pacific Northwest in Washington State. Once we finish painting all of that green paint, we're going to let that dry. And now we're going to take our white Waverly chalk paint and just paint the top leaf with 1 coat of white paint. And once the white paint has dried, I grab my Mod Podge and paint another coat. And we're going to let that completely dry. So I grabbed this paper napkin, and I got this on Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description box below. But it's one of my favorite fall napkins that I've found because it has the colors I like in my house, the blue and the green and the off-white. And I feel like it's very farmhouse and very rustic. And I'm just going to go ahead and layer that top layer of the napkin over the top of the leaf. And I'm just going to cut a rough square that will fit over the top of the leaf, and we're not going to really worry about the overhang of the napkin because once we attach the napkin, we're going to burn the extra overhang off of the leaf. Right now I'm just trying to position the napkin so that I can get as much of the flowers over the white part of the leaf. Next, I'm going to put a piece of parchment paper over the top and iron that napkin straight on with the Mod Podge. Now let's grab our lighter and light the napkin. And it's amazing. It just burns that napkin straight off and it stops right on the white part of the leaf, which is great. And there's a little bit of burn marks, but it just makes it look more rustic, and I like that look that it gives. It kind of gives it a rough look. And once you're satisfied with your edges that you've burnt off, you go ahead and just wipe down any of the extra soot off of your craft, and it may leave a few marks, but it just gives it more of a rustic look, and I'm just going to leave mine that way. Next, I grab a piece of twine, and I'm going to go ahead and hot glue that to the back of the leaf so I have a way of hanging the leaf. Next, we grab the raffia bow that was previously on this leaf, and I did use a little bit of my brown burnt umber paint, and I dry brushed the front of the bow just to give it a more rustic look. And I'm just going to attach that right on the bottom of the leaf to cover the hole that was there. And now our project is complete. I love how this turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. On to craft number 3. So you might have seen this leaf at the Dollar Tree, and that is where I got this maple leaf. And I loved how the front of this leaf turned out, and I didn't want to change the front of the leaf. So we're going to make this a 2-sided sign. So we're going to keep the front just the way it was and remove the stickers from the back of the sign. And off camera, I did sand this down just slightly. Now I'm going to put this leaf on a paintable surface, and I grab my Waverly chalk paint in the color white. We're going to do a nice coat of chalk paint over the back side of this leaf. Now I really want this white to stick out, so I did do 2 coats of white paint. And once everything is dried, I did put this back on a paintable surface, and we're going to grab a checkered silk screen stencil. And I did get this on Amazon. And I'm going to go ahead and peel that stencil off of the piece of paper it came on. And I defuzzed that a little bit on a microfiber cloth. Next, I'm just going to place the stencil over the top of our leaf here. And I'm using my chalk paste in the color Kingdom Moss. And we're going to just squeegee that paint over the top of the leaf. Then we're going to carefully remove the stencil. And now that everything is removed, I just take my heat tool and I just help assist in the drying time since I'd like to move on to the next step. Next, I grab these adorable burlap flowers that I got at the Dollar Tree that they brought back for fall. And I don't know if they had these before in the spring, this style, but I really like how this looks. And I'm just going to hot glue that to the center of our leaf. And that is it. It's a simple little craft. It looks amazing. And now we can place this on a tiered tray or in any shelf decor. Craft number 4. For this craft, I'm starting with the Falling Leaves rolling pin from Dollar Tree. And I'm going to remove the raffia bow on the front and the sticker on the back side of this. Then using my zip sander, I just sand off any of the leftover residue of the sticker from the back side of the rolling pin. Now using some painter's tape, I'm going to tape around the rolling pin handles. So once the handles are completely taped off, I grabbed some paint, and this paint was burnt umber, and I believe it was apple barrel paint, and we just coated this until it was covered completely. It did take 3 coats of paint to get this to look the way I wanted it to. You can see by just changing the color of the handles, it already gives it a more elevated look. But we're going to take this another step further, and we're going to do something on the back side of this rolling pin. So I'm taking some paper, this is scrapbooking paper, and I'm using a glue stick here, and we're going to glue a piece of scrapbooking paper on the back side of this rolling pin. And I cut the scrapbooking paper slightly bigger than the area of the rolling pin, because what I'm going to do here is I'm using a popsicle stick to smooth everything out. And when everything is dry, I grab my zip sander, and doing a downward motion, I sand the paper off of the rolling pin. So once we're done sanding, it's going to look like this. And we could just stop right here. It already is elevated and looks a lot better than when we bought it, but I want to take it up a level. So I'm going to put this on a paintable surface, and I grabbed a stencil, and this stencil is self-adhesive. And it says Hello Pumpkin, and this comes in a set from Amazon of 6 different stencils. I'll put a link below in the description box. Using Redesign chalk paste in the color Kingdom Moss, I'm going to squeegee over and paint this Hello Pumpkin sign. We could stop here, but you know I'm going to take this another step further. I grabbed some ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I made a bow out of it. And this is a pretty fall ribbon that came out this year with little pumpkins all over it. Next, I'm going to grab some Mod Podge, and I'm just going to use that over the top of this paint to seal everything in. After the Mod Podge dries, I noticed that there's a little paint spot from the Hello Pumpkin stencil. So I decided to take a little piece of hot glue and a cute jute twine bow to cover that up. Now I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to add an identical bow on the other side of this rolling pin. And now we have a cute reversible rolling pin that you can add to your tiered trays, or you can add to any of your house decor. Thank you again for watching. Please remember, craft more, stress less.